We are Fox Sports.
And here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg-Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg-Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 6 a.m. on what day is today? Thursday morning. That's what it is. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers fall to the Dallas Mavericks last night in Texas, 126-97. Cold shooting night for the Blazers, just 39%, while Luka Doncic poured in 41 for the Mavs. College hoops tonight. Oregon will square off against Washington in men's hoop up in Seattle. Oregon State is on the Palouse going up against Washington State. Coming up in hour number 2, friend of the program from Scoop Duck, Joel Gunderson on the big show. But super producer Brenden is back, 3-time champion. What do we mean by that? And I have got anxiety through the roof today. We got a lot going on Rip City Mornings, and we start right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's time for Justin Myers to wake you up here on Rip City Mornings, 620 Rip City Radio.
And a very happy Thursday. It is RCM. I am your host, Justin Myers. Super producer Brenden is back, safely partitioned on the other side of the glass. Thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late, however you are rolling on this particular Thursday. We got a lot of stuff to dive into on the big show. Some of it about sports, a lot of it about us. Because if you haven't noticed, show's been a little different the last couple of days. Through no one's fault, but Brenden is back from health and safety protocols. 3-time champion, by the way, as the big C19er came at you again. And he took it down again. 3-0 versus the C19er. So it's good to have super producer Brenden back in the studio. Good to have him back on the big show. My voice that I blew out on Tuesday, doing better. So if you've noticed, it just still doesn't sound exactly quite right. Still dealing with a little kerfuffle up in my upper range, but believe it or not, this is actually better. It actually sounds better than it did. But thanks for getting up early with us or staying up late. We have got some things to dive into on the big show. And obviously, this show is about sports. This show is about sports in the Pacific Northwest. And this show is about sports on the West Coast. And this show is about, interesting things that we discuss and debate and talk about. Let me tell you, I am not in the best headspace today. I'll be perfectly honest with all of you. For the next 3 hours, I'm going to do the show, and I am going to try my best to be as locked in as possible in doing this show. My brain is elsewhere because I got a thing. I got a thing coming up in 4 hours that I am not looking forward to. A little bit about your humble host. A little bit about old Uncle Justin. Take a knee, everybody. Helmet's not a chair. I do not have many phobias in my life. I don't have I have a good, healthy respect for certain things. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. No, I'm afraid of a lot of things. Don't like scary movies. I have a healthy respect for heights. Snakes and spiders, you give them their space. I'm going to give me mine. But, in my house, I am the spider hunter because my wife, deathly afraid of spiders. But I don't think I have an awful lot of phobias. Not afraid of the dark. I don't get claustrophobic. Not afraid of flying. But there is one thing that I am deathly afraid of. And I'm going to have to face that fear in less than 4 hours because it's here. I got a root canal coming up at 10 o'clock. And I am so deathly afraid of the dentist. I haven't had this feeling in a long, long time. Again, open, honest. Probably the least healthy thing I do. I I don't go to the dentist as often as I should. Part of it is just laziness. And part of it is a phobia from when I was a child. Now, I have done some research. Now, Brenden, I don't know if you know this. By the way, good to have you back, by the way. Sorry to make this whole thing about me. You beat COVID for the third time. You're a 3-time champion against COVID.
It was terrible.
You came out on the other side. You beat it.
It was a long week.
It was a tough stretch, but you know what? At halftime, they had us down, not going to lie. But look at you, coming back second half.
It's good to be back. Kind of some weird, that's the COVID brain fog for you. It doesn't feel like I've been gone for a week, and the last show that I did was last Wednesday, but nevertheless, here we are. Like, if you asked me what happened in the last week, Justin, I'd be like, nothing. Nothing happened outside of, like, my four walls. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff has happened. We've talked about it all the last couple of days, but you were back on the show. 3-time champion. Can never take that away now. So it's good to have you back. All that being said, I am freaking out right now internally. Had not a dental emergency, but had what would you like a dental urgency? Let's just say that.
Probably an urgency.
Christmas Eve morning, sitting down, and my wife loves Christmas, so this is like my Super Bowl. Christmas Eve is my Super Bowl. So I sit down Christmas Eve morning. We got the whole day planned out. I wake up, make breakfast, some delicious bagel sandwiches, and of course, because I am me, I like a good everything bagel. What's your bagel of choice?
Everything's good.
I love an everything bagel.
I like the jalapeno and cheese.
Jalapeno cheddar is very, very good.
Or
yes.
cheddar.
Either way, no, you can put any kind of cheese on there. Yeah.
And sometimes, like, I do like the. I'll grab like a sweet one sometimes too, like the. I think it's
the cinnamon, like the cinnamon sugar.
Either I think it's more like the blueberry that they have at like Safeway. I
got you.
Right for those ones. But
so I sit down and I make some delicious bagel sandwiches. And I got the everything bagel. Now, you know that on the everything bagel, there's everything on there. And 2 bites in, and I'm like, uh-oh, something bad has happened. And wife looks at me like, what? And I go, I got to go check something out. And, yep, chomped right down, lost a filling. And I'm like, there's no denying it now. There's no excuses. There's no, like, I'm going to have to go to the dentist and get this whole thing fixed. Now, I have since learned that when you get fillings as a child, this is where my anxiety came from, is apparently, according to science, the germs you are introduced to when you are an infant can determine the strength of your teeth, regardless of how many times you floss, regardless of how many times you brush, regardless of how much fluoride is in the water or how much mouthwash you use. A lot of times your teeth are determined by the germs that you are introduced to as an infant. And sometimes you get just rock hard teeth, and sometimes you get like me, like Michael Scott, I have soft teeth. And so my brother is 2.5 years younger than me. Raised by the same parents, same dental hygiene, brush your teeth every morning, brush your teeth every night, right? Regular dental checkups, and every time as a kid, we would go to the dentist. And he would go in, and they would look at his teeth, and they would clean his teeth, and they'd be like, yep, you are good to go. Here's a sugar-free lollipop. Because, the whole dentist and sugar thing. Here's a sugar-free lollipop. And then I would go in, and they would take a look, and they would clean my teeth, and they were like, all right, you're going to be back in a week. You got another cavity. And I'd be like, what? Every time. Like, I brush my teeth all the time. Now, ate a lot of sugar because it was the 80s, and we didn't quite know exactly how bad sugar was for us, but like, he eats the same thing I do. brushes his teeth the same way I do. Why is it every time we go, little bro gets a lollipop and a see you in 6 months? I get yep, you're going to see us in another 2 weeks. And is it going to be just a little cleaning and, we'll take some extra? No. Needles, drills, that's your future. Every time. That would be different if I had a dentist that was I don't know, how do you say it? Nice. But instead I had a very mean dentist growing up. Because again, it was the 80s. They did a lot of lecturing back then. Little did they know, it was like I was doing all the right stuff. No, dude, a lot of lecturing back then. So I developed a, what do you call it? Hatred for a certain profession. Now, if you are a dentist out there, need you, glad you did it. Don't know why you would go into that line of work, knowing that it is never going to be anyone's best day when they see you, but need you, got it. But from that moment on, I have developed a hatred. I don't want to say anxiety because I think people throw around that word a little bit too much, but I don't know. Whenever I go into a dentist office and I sit into a dentist chair, I might as well be 9 years old again with my mean dentist from the 80s lecturing me and about to jab me with a needle. And now, Brenden, I don't know if you had this when you were a kid, but it was a different time when I was growing up. Did you have cavities as a kid? Not to get into your dental history, but did you ever get
cavities as a kid, cavities as an adult?
You were with me. You got the soft teeth. And when they put in
Not necessarily, Justin. You just know I consume a ton of sugar, so it doesn't really, knowing the amount of candy.
Yeah, but you brush your teeth, right? You take care of them.
As much as
you
I do
can.
floss every day.
Yeah. So when you were a kid and you had to go in and they had to numb you up.
Root beer laughing gas, baby.
Oh, see, we didn't get that. The laughing gas. Never got the nitrous. I just got a shot. And they would do this thing where they would pinch your cheek to almost kind of distract you. But the pinch made it worse. It was like, why don't you just kick me in the junk while you're at it? I hate needles as it is. So pinch, what? Wham, needle. And now I'm like, and we haven't even started drilling yet. So now I'm already freaking out. And so I would know, walking into is it weird? I can still smell it. I can smell it. I know exactly what, I can picture the terrible wood paneling up on the lobby, the crappy magazines, the Sports Illustrated from a year and a half ago, all of that. And I get that feeling in my stomach every time I go to the dentist. Well, guess what? I'm going today. Now, I will try best I can to be here for all of you, because this isn't always about me. It's about all of you. But just know there's a cloud hanging over me today, and I'm very scared, and I'm very nervous. But different day today. You want to know why? I'm going gas. I'm going gas today. He was like, would you be interested? Now, new dentist, very nice. Let me just say this. Dr. Young, very nice man. I'm a 44-year-old grown adult, and he treated me like I was, again, a 9-year-old because I think he could see it in my eyes. Very nice man. And he was like, all right, so we got to do this, and we got to do this. Would you be interested in nitrous? And I was like, yes. Crank it up to wherever the top it will go. So you had the nitrous, the root beer, you said root beer flavor?
As a kid, oh yeah. And then I've actually complained as an adult that my specific dentist does not have nitrous and does not offer nitrous as an adult because I had a root canal that I actually have to get the crown put on in a week and a half. So I kind of know your pain, Justin.
Yeah.
And,
you know what I'm about to go through.
Yeah. No,
what I'm walking into today at 10 o'clock.
I hate it all, too. I'm not sure what is a more...
Did you have the same thing? Again, I don't want to get into your family business, but, again, my brother, I don't think he's had a cavity ever in his life. 2 years younger than me. Never a cavity. Me, mouthful of metal.
It definitely depends.
Was it different for the younger Slaughters?
Yeah, I mean, I
'Cause
think
that was part of the reason-
no one's never not had a cavity. So I think
I got you.
Yeah, no one's
That was
ever
part of the reason why I think I had so much anger, was I would go in, and then little bro would just go skipping out and be like, "Pfft. All right, 6 months, we'll get you another cleaning? Great. Yeah, big bro, we got 2 more days. We got to fill those things. And then I found out that over time, your fillings, you probably have learned this, because they're metal that they would pour in your teeth. Well, metal expands and contracts with heat and cold. And over time, that expansion, microscopic expansion and contraction, creates little microfractures in your teeth. And then one day, you're having a bagel sandwich on Christmas Eve, and your filling pops out. That's me. Welcome to the show, everybody. All right. Blazers got beat again last night. This is going to be a rough go, gang. It's going to be a rough go. We got to hunker down. It's going to be a rough go. But is this worse than the tanking? Is where the Blazers are right now? I'm searching for hope. I am. Look, we're 4 days into the new year. Want to be hopeful for the new year. Is this better or is this worse than the tanking? We'll talk about that next. 620 Rip City Radio. It's funny when you go back and think about like your time in college, and there are certain classes that you took that you go like, man, I'm really glad I took that class. Really, like that is paying dividends to even me today, 20 years after I was on campus. So I'm really glad I took that. That's provided some direction, and I learned a lot from a really, dedicated, smart professor of when I was going into my chosen profession. So there's a couple of classes, and then there are some classes where you're like, all right, I got to do this for 9 weeks, and as soon as I take this final, like a sponge, just squeeze, it's gone. It's gone out of my brain. I've referenced my Rocks for Jocks geology course. Like, the only thing I remember is that there are sedimentary rocks, and they're made from other rocks, and they're igneous rocks. Don't know what they are, why they are. But,
I think we all have that class.
Which one was that for you? Do you even remember?
Yes, because
Did you ever have to take, like, English literature?
So we've discussed, Justin, I
have read Dante's Inferno. Don't know anything about it.
So we've
the Canterbury Tales, nothing.
So we've discussed that Brenden was a very diligent and dedicated college student.
Yeah, I was not.
Was very happy to walk with, cords around my neck.
Look at you. I've partied too much.
But with that all being said, I saved all my laziness for last term of senior year.
Yeah,
and there was a media propaganda class that me and my friend took. We had to beg, borrow, and steal to get a passing grade in that class. Meanwhile, it's
media propaganda. Who would have known you'd have been in the media in a particular time
and here's
where maybe propaganda was kind of an important topic?
And here's the
looking back, boy.
I know, right? And here's the icing on that cake, Justin, and something that me and my friend have never forgotten to this day. And you'll get this too. Let's just say this: she and I had to work very, very hard to, get the grade that we wanted. Our professor was very, very stubborn, very old school.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys are going to cover a practice. We got you. Kind of like,
no.
Yeah. But yet, there may have been a basketball coach's son who was on campus at the time and playing and really, really good, who didn't show up to class and got an A. Showed up to class once.
Did he maybe become one of the all-time leading scorers?
He was, yeah. Could have been. So if you're asking if I still remember that, Justin.
Well,
yeah, that was there were some great.
I'm just saying, it's interesting that you had a media propaganda class. What year was that approximately?
This was spring of 18.
Okay.
Yep. So.
Because after, little did you know in 2 years,
I know, right?
There was going to be a thing.
It was ahead of its time.
Really a couple of things.
It was ahead of its time. It was ahead of its time.
I mean, in 2 days, there's going to be like a, 2 years of a thing. Remember? Little did we know.
But yeah, all that to say, Justin.
At least that was in your chosen field.
It was.
Mine is
but the athletes got, at least that class, they got a little wink and nod, if you know what I mean.
I know I read the Canterbury Tales. Couldn't tell you anything about it. I know I did. But couldn't tell you anything about it. So why am I bringing this up? What on earth? How am I going to make this transition? Myers, have you lost your mind? I know this dentist thing is weighing on you heavily, but have you lost your mind? I think about all the conversations we had about the Blazers in the summer and in the fall. I think about all of the conversations we had about starting lineups. Brenden, how many segments did we do in August and September, leading up into Blazers training camp and then into October about starting lineups and, boy, playing time? We talked about it a ton. And I was thinking about this last night, and I was like, boy, as we sit here, 9-24, can't really stay healthy, in a soft tank, trying to win, not intentionally trying to lose, trying to win, not all that bummed out when you do lose. And it was last night, Anthony Simons came back. Scoot Henderson has been healthy, and Shaden Sharp is also back and healthy from the adductor, which we learned was a hip. Again, things we learn on this show. So on this show, months ago, we had countless segments about how do you work the starting lineup. And now we sit here with a new reality. We sit here with a new outlook on life, a little new outlook on the season. And it was like, oh, well, Shaden came back. He went back to the bench. Scoot is starting with Anthony Simons also starting in the backcourt. There it is. There's your starting lineup for the Blazers. Obviously, they were without DeAndre Ayton, so they didn't have many centers available because Moses Brown was also hurt. But you get Grant, you get Simons, you get Scoot, and you get Kamara. And you see the starting lineup. And I was like watching last night, and I was like, man, how in just a couple of months the turntables have turned. You know what I mean? Like how between losses, injuries, the rest of the NBA, like how the turntables have turned. And I go back, and it was funny because mentioned like 2 years ago. I go back to this point in time 2 years ago when it was clear season was over, right? Dame was hurt. It wasn't working. And newly put in place GM Joe Cronin, interim at the time, shut it all down. Shut it all down by January. And we all learned from that moment on, 2 years ago, we all learned about tanking in the NBA. Because up until that point, I don't believe the Blazers have actively tanked. Going complete, trying to lose, not even attempting a timeout during a run of the opponent. Like, we're trying to lose here. It was our first experience with it. And it was rough, but it wasn't terrible because it was at least something different, which we talked about multiple times, right? Just give me something different to look at. And then Shaden came into the team. Dame got healthy, made a couple of moves. Like, here we go, and we're doing it again. So now we sit here. Blazers are 9-24. Here's my question. Is this worse? Is this worse than the tanking? Now, I realize the Blazers are dealing with injuries, and I realize the benefits of not making the playoffs. Obviously, that is out. I mean, they're 9-24 with no sign of.
Remember, we thought they'd make the playoff or the play-in, Justin. We're like,
again,
squints, you can make the play-in.
Things we talked about 2 months ago.
But yeah,
that are no longer even in the realm of possibility, which is fine. I get it. Look, that's sports, right? If we were all being perfectly honest with ourselves, and beyond the injury, like, this team is way too young. It's a team of kids playing against grown men, right? Jeremy Grant, Matisse Thybulle, the only contributors on this team who are actually grown men.
And I think when you look, like, Justin and I talked about it before the season, agree or disagree on whether or not, and I know Justin has said many times, eventually you have to just, start winning and, get busy living, get busy winning kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that, too, I understand. But, Justin, when you look at what this team is, and then you realize they're probably not going to be too motivated to make the playoffs, to give that draft pick to Chicago.
Yeah.
They've got a draft pick coming in from Golden State. They're looking at 2 first-round draft picks. I know nobody wants to hear it, and I'm not sure I want to hear it. But, it's like you have to call a spade, and the reality, I think the Blazers would be just fine, not even soft tanking, Justin, because this is just like you're flat out not good enough. Last 2 years.
And that's why I'm saying, that's why I'm bringing up the question. At least when they were tanking, it was like, all right, I see what they're doing, trying to lose.
They're flat out not good enough.
Now it's just I don't want to say talent gap, because I do think Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, and Anthony, I do believe they're talented. I think DeAndre Ayton's talented. It's obviously a depth problem. It's an injury problem, and it's a youth problem, right?
Is it?
It's like you look at what Dallas is doing. Like, Luka went off last night, and Luka goes off time to time, but it took him a good couple of years before he became consistent, and so hopefully maybe Scoot and Shaden turn into a superstar caliber player. Not comparing their game to Luka, but like the superstar caliber player that he is. Like, we haven't seen even Wembanyama's going through like his ups and downs this year. We haven't seen that rookie phenom since what? Donovan Mitchell? Who was the last real rookie phenom? Like
maybe Anthony Edwards. Maybe.
But even still, he had to learn a little consistency. The talent was there. We could always see the talent, but it's the being a pro and not
probably Shai Gilgeous then. But even he is.
But he was
kind of a second-year guy when he popped off. So yeah,
exactly, because the Clippers traded him away.
Right.
Bet they're rethinking that one now.
Oh my goodness.
But it's
the Thunder are like, thank you for him and the 7 picks. Thanks, guys. 7 picks and that guy.
We're going to talk about the Thunder coming up later on because we are making the transition. We're going to do Round Ball Rock coming up next segment because the NBA is fascinating. Not with the Blazers right now, but like it's to me. My question is with the tank, you knew what the direction was, right? The direction was clear. Picks. You need picks, and we talked about it ad nauseum. You look at all these guys, from Jason Tatum to Joel Embiid to Luka Doncic to John Morant. Like, you look at all those guys, and what do they all have in common, right? They're top 4 picks. So you want to be a top 4. You want those type of players. You got to pick in the top 4. You got to figure out how to do it. Now, so you knew what the direction was. I'm guessing the new year, new Blazers. What's the direction? Are they going to pull the plug? Are they just going to continue status quo, which I think they should do? This is not a criticism. It's an observation. Status quo is minutes, experience, learn some things, figure some things out about this team. And if you finish 5th from the bottom, ho-hum. Do you know what I mean? But it's tough. It's a tough watch.
It is. And the other thing that I'm curious to see, and maybe this is getting myself out a little bit ahead of my skis, but it's like
you put the cart before the horse.
It could be
doing that.
Yeah. I'm curious to know ultimately what Chauncey Billups' future is, and that's only because we've seen in the NBA now time and time again.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, the example that I think is going to reign true in the NBA for a couple years now. And let me pull up the standings just to see if they've yeah, they have. So, like, for instance, Houston Rockets, maybe the worst team in the NBA since they traded away James Harden.
Yes, they've been awful.
They put Steven Silas in there, and they said, your job is to lose.
Fall guy.
Yes. Steven Silas loses for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go, okay, I think we're ready to win with these guys. Pull the plug on him. Go get Ime Udoka, who's available.
Yes.
And I
don't think you're getting out of your skin. I think it's a fair question,
especially when a coach like Mike Budenholzer's out there. There are some big level coaches still out there.
But there's a couple of other realities. So let's talk about this real quick because this is a very good point. I don't think Chauncey Billups is going anywhere anytime soon, and here's why. One, like you said, he was not brought in to tank. He was brought into a situation
because the roster wasn't the problem.
That's right. It was the problem.
That's why he was brought in. Specifically, let's not kid ourselves.
Now,
right?
he saw the roster, took the job regardless, but came in to we were in a bad place back then, all right? It was just they were in a bad place, right? Coming off of that Denver loss, that's as down as the Blazers have been in a while.
Although I do miss playoffs.
Playoffs are fun.
Just say it.
Playoffs were fun. But you know what I mean? That Denver loss when Nurk was like, I don't even know if I want to be here, and they fired Terry Stotts, whom we all loved, and it was like, it was down. And so Chauncey Billups came in with that roster, knew it, but he was kind of brought into like, we're going to play some good hard defense. He's going to mentor Dame, and he got 2 years of tanking. So 2 years of tanking, and then now a year with a roster that I believe is the youngest in the NBA. I think it's close, but I'm pretty sure by like 4 months or whatever, I believe they are the youngest roster in the NBA. And so at some point, you've got to give him a chance with talent and experience. He doesn't have that. So there's that. Here's the other
They're
point.
close.
Are they close? Are they?
Yeah.
Who's younger, Detroit?
Technically San Antonio by like half. San Antonio's average age is 23.5, Portland's 24.7.
Oh,
So this was before the season. They may have signed some guys and brought it down even more, but Justin's point holds true. Like,
all right, so they're the second youngest roster.
Pretty much.
Because everybody says that, right? Oh, we're one of the youngest teams. No, there's actual math to determine that. They are the second youngest roster. It also makes sense because the Spurs are also 5-28.
Something scary, Justin? The Thunder are 27 or 24.8.
Which we all
just throwing that out there.
Again, that's the blueprint. That's the hope. Let's be the Thunder. That's the hope. It was bad for the Thunder for 3 years, right? How long ago was that? 5 years ago when Dame waved him off? And it was like, finally they're back. Like, that's where we're at. Luckily, we're 3 years in. But, so there's that with Chauncey Billups, right? 2 years of tanking and then now a young roster. Also, it seems as though, and I don't know because I don't know either of the guys, what are the other things that ultimately lead to coaches being let go? Frustrations with general managers. Feels like Chauncey Billups and Joe Cronin on the same page. At least that's what I kind of take from it, but I don't have inside sources. I don't know. But here's the other thing. Because we live in a world where the billionaire's money is just monopoly money. You think the Blazers are going to pay for 2 years of Chauncey Billups to not coach? Financially, they could afford it. They're not going to pay. They're not going to pay. It was a 5-year deal, right?
Team option for the 5th.
Well, they're not going to pay one.
It would be one. It would be one.
They wouldn't do that, though, because
I don't think
let's look at the spending habits of this team. Remember, they were trying to keep the broadcast crews at home until somebody said, hey, you can't, like, that's ridiculous, right?
I'm glad someone said something.
They've been.
But you're right.
Let's be honest.
Yep.
And they're also in a situation where they're trying to sell the team, presumably. We don't know.
Another aspect of it.
Last thing you want to do is throw a couple extra $1 million on the books. They're not gonna pay that. And the other thing is, what are the reasons that coaches get fired? Frustrations with GMs. Frustrations with front office. Don't get the sense there.
To me,
and frustrations with superstar player. That's how you mentioned Budenholzer. Giannis booted him out of town. He did.
Could there be
Giannis was like, I won a championship. I'm not winning one anymore. I might go somewhere else. He goes, there's no player with that clout on this team. Like, and then
add another in there
financially, it's just not going to do it.
You're right. And then another thing to throw in there too, Justin, I think could be a reason is if you were looking at the year the same way we did, where we didn't look at it as wins. What if at the end of the year, GM ownership looks at the situation and says, we didn't see enough guard development from a guard coach.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to come at Billups,
at the end,
just a question.
At the end of the year, I think the way we kind of evaluate from a fan's perspective, because none of us have the ability to hire and fire. We're just a bunch of goofballs talking. I'm just lucky enough to have a microphone in front of my mouth. But at the end of the year, right, that's the evaluation. Is when Scoot is playing in March and Shaden is playing in March and heck, even like Aiden, for that matter, are they a trajectory up? Because right now they're inconsistent, and that's going to happen with young players. Young players are inconsistent. So I think that's where that but I think it's a fair question, but it's also an unfair situation for Chauncey Billups. You had 2 years to tank.
Totally unfair.
2 years to tank, and then a roster of kids.
Was it fair to Steven Silas? I mean, it's...
No, but I think it was... I don't know. I don't know what was going on in Houston, but it felt like they were like, all right, you're going to be an NBA head coach. Now you got to lose. And then, like, for that, you get 2 years of a coach's pay, and you get that on your resume. I don't know if it... I didn't seem like he was all that surprised.
Yeah, no two situations are the same, but the only reason I brought it up is that I think you do need to see certain benchmarks if you're a Blazer fan. Like, again, going back to what I said to start the season, can you evaluate the season in wins and losses? No, but I see a guy in Chauncey Billups who was an incredible guard, an incredible player, and the kind of competitor that you want your two
Yeah.
young guards to be. If they're not showing signs of that by the end of the year, Justin,
Like to
you,
score,
you might be like, That's
Like-
all. That's all I'm saying.
would like to score more than 97 points. Poor people didn't get their nuggets yesterday. Nobody
Yes,
got
tragic.
chicken nuggets yesterday. That's twice that's happened, I think, this year.
Tough to get there when you
We were
shoot
like-
38%.
We were like
Justin.
10 years. Everybody got nuggets. Nobody got nuggets last night.
It was icy cold in Dallas
All
last
right.
night, Justin.
Nobody could warm their bellies with nuggets because they know you will pay for your 6-piece. All right, we've got some NBA talk to wrap up hour number 1 next, 620 Rip City Radio. 8 months. Like, you didn't even complete a full year. Anyways, again, I don't blame the kids for transferring. Just, like, save me the Instagram posts. But we're going to talk some more college football. But we transition on the program to this particular segment where we take a look around the great league that is the National Basketball Association, because while the Blazers may be dealing with some tough times right now, 97 points last night, there is still some fantastic stories going on in the NBA, and it's a new year. This is the time where, even though there's NFL games, college football is wrapping up, we shift our focus. So let's get some tash with Little Round Ball Rock. All right. You know, I go back and I think about the segment that we had with our good friend Devon Pouncey, who hopefully is feeling better. He's also dealing with a little illness. Hopefully he's feeling better. On the eve of the NBA, and, you know, we kind of went around and talked about some of our surprise teams and teams that are going to be out there, and we gave our pick for the MVP. Brenden, I said Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be my pick for MVP. And a little bit out there, I've also, and Brenden knows this because he listens to me every single day, I fall in love with players on other teams. I just do. And SGA has been one of those dudes where I'm just like, I love watching that guy play. It's like I like watching Luka, even though it was not fun putting up 40 on the Blazers last night. Luka's fun to watch. And beyond the off-the-court problems and maybe even some of the post-dunk celebrations, I still like watching Ja Morant play basketball. I can't deny it. Still love it. But the Oklahoma City Thunder are 23-10 right now. They are just one game behind the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Western Conference. And look, we're 33 games into the season. We're off and running. There's 50 games left in the season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's averaging 31 points a game, and he's got the Oklahoma City Thunder potentially as one of the best teams in the Western Conference. Now, the Nuggets are still there. But Brenden, last night went on DraftKings, put a couple of bucks on old SGA to win MVP. Feeling pretty good about my pick. He's a dude. He's fun to watch. I would say maybe the biggest surprise so far in the NBA, it's got to be the fact that the Timberwolves and the Thunder have kind of, not the Thunder, but that the Timberwolves have kind of figured it out. Because remember, the Timberwolves were a mess. They were a mess. It was like, what are they doing giving up all those picks for Rudy Gobert? This isn't going to, and it didn't work. And now, they've got some things figured out. And maybe, potentially, the biggest threat to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in terms of the MVP race is Anthony Edwards. That guy's pretty good.
I was going to say Anthony Edwards is a guy that I like a lot. I think Jason Tatum could be in that mix to finally get his first MVP this year, too. Selfishly, no one from Milwaukee is going to win it. Don't want anyone from Milwaukee to win it.
They're good, though. They're good.
Hopefully they're too good, and they can't, they split the votes from each other, because I don't need to see an MVP from someone who maybe used to be here. I don't need to see that yet, Justin. Especially in this big of a tank year. Yeah. Oh, man, it stinks. But no, I think those are all good picks. I think Luka is going to be pushing hard for one this year. Mm-hmm. He's actually actually second in the NBA in scoring at 33.5 a game. So I think it's going to be hard to not give it to, like, Luka. I think you're pretty on it with Shai Gilgeous. I think those are good picks. I don't think Embiid wins it again, even though he is the league leader in scoring.
He's not going to play enough games.
And finally, the shine of Nikola Jokic has seemingly worn off, Justin.
A little bit. But here's the other thing, and we're going to wrap up with this. We'll see what happens at the end of the season, right? This is not even the halfway point. We'll see what happens at the end of the season. Top 6 in the West right now. 5 of those teams are New Orleans, Sacramento, Denver, Oklahoma City, Minnesota. I thought small market teams couldn't compete. Well, how on earth do they even compete in those tiny little towns? Small market teams in the NBA. They can't. Also, by the way, Milwaukee is second and Indiana's 5th in the East. How on earth do these small market teams even compete? I don't know. Us in a little tiny little town of Portland. How do we even get in on that fun game? Just throwing it out there. We got hour number 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio.
Here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 7 a.m. on a Wednesday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Portland Trail Blazers fall to the Dallas Mavericks in Texas last night, 126-97. No chicken nuggets for you. Cold shooting night for the Blazers, 39% from the field. Meanwhile, Luka Doncic poured in 41 as the Mavs get the victory in Dallas. College basketball tonight, the Oregon Ducks will be facing off against Washington in Seattle. Oregon State heads to the Palouse to take on the Cougs in Pac-12 action. And coming up in 20 minutes, friend of the program, Joel Gunderson from Scoop Duck is going to be joining us as we are both in emotional turmoil as the Washington Huskies are one game away from winning an actual real national championship. It's been a rough season so far. Could get way worse if the Huskies get the win on Monday. But transfer portal news, DJU legacy. Hour 2 starts right now on 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. It's RCM with Justin Myers, right here on your home of the Portland Trailblazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, Joel Gunderson's going to join me in 20 minutes. I've been talking about it a ton this week, and obviously, if you've been listening to the entire show all throughout the week, one, thank you, I appreciate it. But if you have heard me talk about this before, appreciate your patience. It's an odd season for Oregon football. It's an odd season. And I'm still not quite sure how to process it because I talked about this with Tyson Alger yesterday. And Brenden, I want to get into the Beavs here in a second because I found some news on DJU that I find very funny. But you think about where Oregon football is this year. 12 wins. That doesn't happen very often. 12 wins in a season. Doesn't happen very often. Matter of fact, I think it's only happened twice in program history. Maybe 3 times. 12 wins on the season.
Yeah, rarefied air.
They had a quarterback in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. They've only had 3 other players in those chairs. Joey Harrington, LaMichael James, and of course Marcus Mariota won the thing. So one time, 1 in 4 program history. Even though Dennis Dixon should have definitely been there in 2007. But so you had a 12-win season. You had a player up until the last game of the regular season, not even of the regular season, but the last game in the Pac-12 championship, that was the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman. You have massively improved your recruiting. You got like one of the best recruiting classes ever. You won the Fiesta Bowl. And I know it was 10 a.m. New Year's Day. Brenden had COVID. I was a little hungover, right? And it was Liberty and the team that should not have been there, and we have different view of bowl games right now. But still, if you look back at history, Oregon's won the Fiesta Bowl twice. It's won the Rose Bowl 3 times. I believe, if my memory serves, that's it for New Year's Day bowl games that Oregon has won. That's it. Trying to think back, and I'm pretty sure I've got that right, since the modern era of college football. They won the Rose Bowl against Russell Wilson. They won the Fiesta Bowl against Colorado, won the Fiesta Bowl against Kansas State, lost the Fiesta Bowl to Iowa State.
There was this quarterback, though.
He's pretty good. Turns out we should have kept an eye on that guy. But do you know what I mean? 5 New Year's Day bowl games. Herbie won the Rose Bowl. Marcus won the Rose Bowl. And Darren Thomas and that team in 2011 won the Rose Bowl. Joey won the Fiesta Bowl. 2012 team won the Fiesta Bowl. That's it. For New Year's Day Bowl wins. That's it. So you had a player in New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation one out of 4. It's only happened 3 other times in program history. You won a New Year's Day Bowl game. That's only happened 5 other times in program history. 12 wins. It's only happened 3 other times in program. It's 100-plus years we've been playing football down in Eugene. And these are... Yeah, it feels a little meh. Part of it was playing Liberty. But as I talked about with Tyson, the real reason why it doesn't feel like a season to celebrate is because that purple and gold's still playing. They're still playing on Monday. And the quarterback that everybody is talking about for the last 2 days, and by the way, welcome to West Coast, everybody, is Michael Penix. Which, I guess I haven't talked to you about this, Brenden. I don't know if it's kind of amusing to me, and it's kind of also irritating to me, seeing everybody go like, whoa, man, this Michael Penix guy, I've never seen it. It's like, yeah, we've been watching this for 2 years, dude. We've been watching, like, oh, weird, he just does not stop throwing fades, Rome Odunze, and none of his receivers ever drop the ball. It's like, yeah, we've been dealing with this for 2 years. You guys are just catching on now? Got it.
Yeah, and it really...
Isn't it kind of amazing? It's like the whole football world is like, oh, boy, Michael Penix, what an... It's like, yeah, we know.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Obviously, take nothing away from the Huskies, Justin, but I go back to, again, the Oregon Ducks, who were right there, at least once, right there.
Right there.
The upstart Arizona Wildcats, who nearly took them down in September.
Talk about the Huskies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, again, ho-hum, a 2-point win over the Oregon State Beavers while Jonathan Smith had one foot out the door. So imagine, or even the field goal to beat the Cougs.
With the fourth down play.
And Penix putting his head in the, coach's coach's comments. He couldn't look at the field goal.
He does that a lot, though. I think that's like a meditation thing for him. He did that in the Sugar Bowl as well. I think it's like a recentering thing.
I saw somebody put out there that said, like, by some crazy metric, like very much how TCU was like the luckiest team in America last year. This year it's Washington. Everything that's needed to break their way has broken their way.
Well, you need a little bit of luck in general just to make it that far. I don't think they're the luckiest team in football.
They're up there.
But I talked about this, though, Brenden. Hear me out. When you watch Washington, you saw them play in that game against Oregon State, where it was like, all right, Oregon State's got his number. They've got it figured out. But you know what they never stopped doing? They never stopped throwing those fade routes. They never
And they finally hit one.
And they finally hit one, because it's what they do, right? Same thing against Oregon, like, got it figured out, got the lead, got the momentum, and guess what? Fade route. Their receivers don't drop the ball. All that. Other than the Arizona State game, where it was kind of that Oregon hangover game, where they need a defensive touchdown. It's what they do. So I don't know. It's a little bit of luck, because every team needs luck. Michigan needed luck. Well, maybe not all that much luck. Michigan's really good. But it probably helps that,
You see Connor Stallions at the game?
Yeah. He wasn't incognito. He shaved his head. It's like, I don't
I bet he needed to shave completely change his look, Justin.
But you know what I mean? You need a little bit of luck to be able to make it this far. But I would not put Washington in the same breath as TCU from a year ago. I don't see it
even if they win the national championship?
If Washington wins the national championship, yeah. I mean, because TCU finally got exposed by Georgia. Washington's been doing this for 2 years.
I don't think exposed is the right word, but the fact of the matter is you look at the schedule, Justin, Washington doesn't blow teams out.
No, but
that's the other
But I
part
watched
of it.
both of those Oregon games, and while it was frustrating, you can say Washington did the job and beat them, right? That wasn't neither one of those games were flukes. Both of those teams were evenly matched, and Washington did what you had to do in terms of coaching and execution to win those games. Same thing against Oregon State, right? In that game, it was right down to the wire. One team did the job and got executed the way it was supposed to do. The only game where I would say for Washington was that Arizona State game. They got a bit lucky.
If Kenny Dillingham had a competent quarterback, Washington loses that game hands down.
But you know what we say? if ifs and ands were pots and pans, we'd have a lot of fun in the kitchen.
But yeah, I mean, looking back, like we said, that win there, 2-point win over the Beavs. They beat beat Utah by a score, beat USC by only 10.
But it's just at some point, right? It's like it's what they do.
It is,
right. You know what I mean? At some point, I don't think it is luck. I think it's just kind of what they do. Real quick, because I did want to talk about this. We had a good laugh, and I don't know if Brenden thought it was funny. I did. When we saw the videos pop up of all the Jonathan Smith gear at the Goodwill in Corvallis. And we had a good laugh about it, and it's like, man, but Jonathan Smith's not the only Oregon State person that is moving on to a different spot in the college football world. DJU has transferred. Don't blame him, but DJU is headed to Tallahassee. Good luck with that fan base. If you thought the Clemson fan base didn't treat you fair, good luck with the Florida State fan base, DJU. But I saw this.
It's going to be a little tough for Big Dave to go to both kickoffs in the same day.
It's going to be a little tough, yeah. But I did see a Beaver believer on the X app said that he was the same size as DJU. DJU gave him all his gear. So, like, good for DJ. You know what? Gear in good hands. Here's a gift. Here's all this stuff. Take it, wear it with pride. And it got me thinking, like, transfer portal's not equal. You know what I mean? Not every transfer portal quarterback is Bo Nix or Michael Penix or Caleb Williams, right? Not everyone, and not everyone is a bust either. And not like, I want to throw a ricochet shot at JT Daniels, but not everyone is JT Daniels. We just cannot find a place to play. Every once in a while, there's all right, he was here. Wasn't bad, wasn't great, wasn't exactly what we thought, wasn't worse. What do you think the Oregon State fan base is feeling with regard to DJU? Just kind of like, boy, that was an interesting time.
Yeah.
No anger, no sadness, just like,
there's not a lot of.
Kind of weird.
I mean.
Remember when that 5-star quarterback played for us for that 1 year?
Yeah, I think there's, again, everything that I've seen, and there were some more guys, right? Silas Bolden entered the portal. They lost another offensive lineman. Both guys are expected to join the Snake at Michigan State.
Yeah, but it's different with quarterbacks, and especially a quarterback with a name that recognizable.
Oh, of course. And this is not a criticism of DJ, and it may be something where Oregon State fans, regret. But let me just read this out to you, Justin. A guy that throws 57%, 2,600 yards, 21 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Is that life-changing numbers? That's where I think Oregon State fans are like, well, it was great to see. It was better than Ben Gulbranson in 2022.
Would it? All right.
But, was DJ... I still think there were,
I got a question for you.
DJ will be graded, Justin, based on, and I want to pull this up real quick before you ask. DJ will be graded how he played the good teams. DJ completed 48% of his throws for $164 against UW, and then 54% of his throws for 200 against Oregon. You didn't show up and make the big-time throws in those big-time games. Not to say that's not critical, but that's why they brought in DJ, was to hit those third and long throws.
But there was a couple of throws that he made that, who knows if Aiden Childs would have been able to make those throws. But here's the question real quick, and we're going to wrap it up. We're going to talk to Joel Gunderson coming up in a bit. I've always said the biggest what if in the Mark Helfrich era is, boy, what if he'd have started Justin Herbert game one and not done the Dakota Prukop thing? And again, talk about not all transfers are equal, right? Dakota Prukop got there, was good, not Pac-12 good, He was Montana State good, wasn't Pac-12 good, and that's no knock on him. It's just a reality. As opposed to Vernon Adams, who he was Pac-12 good, because when he was in the Big Sky, he helped with Cooper Kupp as well. But when he was in the Big Sky, beat Oregon State, beat Washington, and darn near beat Oregon. But biggest what if for Oregon in Mark Helfrich era is what if he'd have started Herbert game one against Virginia that year? Anyways, 2016, game one, if they had started him instead of Dakota Prukop. I don't know if it changes anything with Jonathan Smith because I think the moment the Pac-12 disintegrated, I think he was maybe eyeballing other places to go. But
maybe.
What if he started as Aiden Childs game one? What if DJU says, I can't, he had other options, and DJU went to a different school, didn't go, maybe he went to Hawaii. Remember he was talking, he might go to Hawaii.
Sure.
What if DJU went to Hawaii? So I want to get back to my Polynesian roots. I'm going to go to Hawaii, and Aiden Chiles starts game one.
Either way, Aiden Chiles is still in East Lansing.
Yeah.
So
So it doesn't.
that
my
would
what if
hurt.
doesn't
That would
really-
hurt worse. So again, Justin, it's like they say, the vitriol, and I appreciate this from Oregon State fans because it's still maintained some weeks later. I always say, don't blame. I don't blame a kid for making a decision, but it's like, yeah, every player that leaves Oregon State's roster and ultimately ends up in East Lansing, there's going to be some hard feelings there. And there will be for probably about a year, and then it will die down, and people will care a lot less.
It's just
But that
sports. We're
wound-
just rooting for laundry, you know?
But that wound, Justin, like I've still seen, I've been out for a week, but I've still seen bits and pieces. Beaver fans still pretty torn up about
Don't
that.
fire up about it. Don't blame them. Understand? There's still a lot of Oregon fans rooting against Miami.
Yep.
Still, and it's like, we're way better off. Like, way better off. It's like, yep, still rooting
If the
against them.
Beavers could get that too, they'd be happy. I
Still
don't know
rooting
about that.
against them. All right. College football talk continues. Joel Gunderson, friend of the program, joins the show next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, so Oregon on Monday, bright and early. Some of us were still, headache wasn't too bad. I'll be perfectly honest, didn't make it to midnight. First time in a while.
For different reasons, neither did I. I celebrate East Coast New Year.
And I celebrated, I made it to Denver New Year. So it's like, hey, me and the fine folks of the Mile High City, we said, hey, happy 2024, then I went to bed. But got up, watched Oregon. It was like, oh, boy, is this going to be one of those games? And then, no, it wasn't. And Bo Nix set a record. Oregon torched Liberty. Got to watch Oregon football one last time. And then a whole thing of football happened afterwards. Joining us now to talk about not only the game on Monday, but the season that was, and looking ahead as now Oregon makes the transition to the Big Ten. Friend of the program from Scoop Duck, Joel Gunderson back on the Big Show. Gundy, Happy New Year. How we doing?
Happy New Year to you and you and Brenden. Doing good. Still, I was not as in bad a shape as you were on Monday morning, but still, it was nice to get a couple of good nights' sleeps the last couple of nights. So, feeling better. It was a super exciting day on Monday. Not a great end to it, but we can get into that in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, let's dive into this. I've got a couple of topics I want to throw at you because this is why I love talking to you, Joel, is because you and we may not always agree with regard to everything with Oregon football, but I trust your judgment, and you've also seen enough, as opposed to some of these Johnny-come-latelys who come in and start spouting off hot takes and don't understand that there was a whole slew of things that happened before. So with that, let's have the discussion about Bo Nix. Bo Nix, in his 2 years, is as talented as anybody that's ever played, as fun to watch as anybody that's ever played for Oregon, and a necessary transfer that Oregon needed after Mario Cristobal left, and clearly Dan Lanning did not have much in the cupboard because Ty Thompson might be taking over the reins at Iowa soon. Didn't have much in the reins at quarterback, and a much-needed time. But he leaves Eugene, obviously, without a championship. He leaves Eugene with 3 losses to Washington. Not his fault, but still, that's what it is. I'm wondering, when we look down the road 3, 4, 5 years, what's the legacy of Bo Nix in Eugene? Is he one of the one-name guys, the Joey, LaMichael, Herbie, Marcus, or is he just a fun story that we talk about like in 5 years, so God willing, we're still doing this show, and Gundy's on, and I'm like, hey, remember that Bo Nix years? Those were fun.
Yeah, that guy came from like Mississippi State or something, right?
From somewhere in the South.
I sure hope that he's on the one-name pantheon. I mean, you know, it's hard because the bowl game was against an opponent like Liberty, but you cannot take away the fact that they won 12 games. And for a program that, you know, up until the mid-'90s was completely irrelevant in the pantheon of college football, now having 6 12-win seasons doesn't sound like a lot because it's not, especially when you compare it to some of the other blue bloods. But, you know, he is in charge of one of those. And let's face it, they were 7 points away from having 14 wins already and going for a championship in a matchup where I think that Oregon would probably be favored. So it took a lot of things for Bo to reach the point where he has. Certainly having a coach that has built in 2 years already, you know, sort of revitalized the way the program is structured and the way they're going forward. 2 complete home run hires as his offensive coordinators. But it doesn't take away from the fact that, you know, 2 years ago, Bo was on the, like I said, he was in football purgatory. We did not know where he was going to be. He went from a 5-star recruit to someone who was looking like they were headed for undrafted free agency and not even being drafted. And now he's probably going to be anywhere between a 1st and 3rd round pick. And, you know, a lot of credit goes to a lot of people, but it's him. I mean, the guy very easily could have packed it up, said, this just isn't for me. I'll get into coaching. I'll follow my dad or whatever it was. And he took the humble route. He transferred. He came all the way across the country. And now he's responsible for, I would say, 2 of the more exciting seasons that Oregon's had in a long time. I mean, this is a program that, you know, over the last decade has experienced a lot of really extreme highs, and they were a lot of fun for a while. The last few seasons weren't very fun, you know, and Bo was part of bringing it back to being fun. And like I said, it took a lot of people around him, but to go out with 12 wins, set all the records he did, you know, I'd argue that for For me, I would have to go back to probably Akili Smith to remember the last time that a quarterback was as exciting to watch. Certainly Dennis Dixon had moments. I'm not taking away what Marcus did or anything like that, but just in terms of like watching a guy who went out there and you just thought every time, like, I know that good things are going to happen because if we get the ball back into his hands, I trust what he's going to do. So I certainly think he's on the one name list. It helps when your name is Bo. It's kind of an easy name to remember, but
yeah.
12 wins, you cannot deny what that means. And to be the guy in charge of it, that headed as the quarterback, yeah, he's certainly in the top 5 of all time, I think.
Well, it's interesting. Joe Gunderson of Scoop Duck, friend of the program, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. I look back and I compare this team almost to kind of the 2012 team, Joel, and I will die on this hill. The 2012 team was the best Oregon football team of all time. Not the most accomplished, but they were the best of all time. I'll die on that hill, and I understand people might disagree, and that's fine. That's why we do what we do. But
I'm right there with you.
You look at 2012, right? Heartbreaking loss, albeit, Zach Ertz was out, but neither here nor there. But heartbreaking loss that cost you potentially the whole thing. And you still look back with fondness of that 2012 season, got into a Fiesta Bowl, beat the tar out of a very inferior opponent, albeit Kansas State was not quite Liberty. So there are some comparisons, yet 2012 felt different than, say, 2023. And I'm wondering, is that solely because of who is participating in the game coming up on Monday?
Probably. I think for me, the reason I look at this team and, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, I legitimately was sitting here thinking, like, this can happen. There's just two things that went into that. One, there's no true juggernaut outside of Oregon that you went up and thought, boy, if they face them in the championship game, it's, it'll be fun to be there, but it's just not going to happen. Georgia was not Georgia. Alabama is not Alabama. Michigan is undefeated, but, Michigan doesn't scare you the way a Georgia would have last year. And the other is when you look at Oregon's roster and you compare them, for example, to 2012, I was just happened to stumble across the 2011 season recap video yesterday on YouTube. Oregon was so small. And that, you and I both agree that 2012 team was probably the best in program history, but if you put this roster up against that one, it's not even a question. I mean, Oregon is so much bigger and faster and stronger across the board and across the offensive and defensive line. It's that reason why this year felt different to me, because it truly did feel like that Friday night in Vegas, if they had been able to take care of business, I really honestly think that Oregon would have been favored in both games and probably be looking at their first ever championship on Monday night. And, yeah, you add in now who's playing, and it's someone on Twitter the other day said this is the most soul-sucking 12-win season ever after Washington had won. And it's true. You have your most bitter, hated rival in a season where you had everything going for you, and they're just that one thing that can't get out of your way. And now they get a chance to go for it all. And it's, it can't take away from what Oregon did, but, boy, it is painful to watch and see and listen to what could happen in a few days.
Here's another thing I want to throw out. So in 2014, I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to host a radio show up in Seattle, and the Huskies were fine. It was the first couple years of Chris Peterson, and then Oregon was having an all-time elite season, and I may have found it funny in 2014 when I was on the air in Seattle to kind of maybe poke some fun here and there. Looking back, might have been a mistake because they asked me 2 years later, thank you for coming, please exit stage left, which is how I ended up back here. Happy to be here, though. But I remember hearing from Washington fans then about how much they wanted to hate Marcus Mariota, but they just couldn't do it. He's just the way he played, the way he acted, wanted to hate him, just couldn't do it. And I kind of get that feeling about Michael Penix, Joel. Like, I want to hate this guy. I really do. I want to just talk about how overrated he is and how lucky I just can't do it. He is too fun to watch. I hate admitting it, but Oregon fans, I think, are dealing with what Washington fans were dealing with in 2014 of a dude on their rival you want to hate. Man, you just can't do it.
He's so good. I mean, it is
so good.
there's nothing you can say about it. I haven't seen a college quarterback throw the deep ball the way he does. In nothing jumps off the top of my head, which tells you how long it's been. When you factor in, this is the thing. They have a generational combination of quarterback and wide receivers. And I'm not saying they can't ever have that again, but boy, it's going to be a long time and a lot of luck for that to happen. But it's true. I mean, when you think of for Penix, what he's overcome from his injuries, I believe he's had 2 or 3 season-ending injuries in his career, and in this day and age, he's bounced around, and you're happy for him as a person. I certainly hope I think Oregon fans want him to come up one win short. But yeah, when you watch him, I mean, it is. If he were on any other team and you're watching him, it would be absolutely must-see TV every game, because his ability to stand in the pocket when there's chaos around him and deliver just, absolute pinpoint balls that are 40, 50 yards down the field, you just don't see it. You don't see it in the NFL, let alone in college, where, quarterbacks are not, there's so many ones that are very average to poor. But just to watch that offense, it is special, and there's you can't deny it. And taking that back to Oregon, I mean, look, they give Washington their 2 biggest challenges of the season, I think by far, and they're a Campbell Lewis field goal here from probably being in the same spot. So if you're Oregon, you look at it, you say they have this generational combination of talent on offense, and Oregon was right there, so you feel good about it. But yeah, it's he seems like a good kid. An unbelievable arm that I don't know how it's going to transition to the NFL, but it certainly looks like it would be hard for him not to succeed.
Joe Gunderson of Scoop Duck, friend of the program, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Obviously, Bo Nix played his last game for the Oregon Ducks. Another all-timer is Troy Franklin, and had this question posed to me, and I try not to have recency bias. Joel, I try to have maybe a big perspective, and I've watched, obviously, every Oregon football game from when I can remember watching Oregon football games back in the 80s. And I was asked, is Troy Franklin the best wide receiver in Oregon history? And I thought for a second, and I'm like, I think it's a definitive yes. And to be perfectly honest, I don't know if it's even particularly close. Bo Nix is going to leave as one of the more exciting players in Oregon history, but did the last 2 years, because, again, looking at what the Mario Cristobal offense did to Troy Franklin in 2021 is kind of criminal. But the last 2 years, to see what Troy Franklin has been able to do, did we just witness the greatest receiver in Oregon football history as well?
Yeah, and that was not even close.
Not even close, right?
Not even close. I mean, that's the thing is, when Oregon was in its absolute heyday under Chip, and they didn't have, it was not receiver driven. It was all, mostly running back, and you go back to Demetrius Williams or Tony Hartley, like going way back in the day. I mean, those guys were fantastic. It would be fun to watch them in an offense like this, where it clearly benefits the receivers. But no, it's not even close. This is a cool story to tell you how wrong people can be that follow this for a living. Before the season at Scoop Duck, we did our surprise storylines of the year, and mine was that Trayshawn Holden was going to overtake and be by the end of the season, he would be receiver 1 for this team. And boy, could I not have been more wrong. I still have a lot of hope, and I really actually think that Holden will be really good next year. But I didn't quite realize just how great Troy was. And it's a combination of everything. He has the right size. He has unbelievable hands, and I didn't think anybody realized how fast he was. I mean, he seemed like more of a, not necessarily a possession receiver, but a guy that was reliant more on his ability to run routes. Sometimes this year, when he got open and he just blew by everybody, it was truly special to watch. And yeah, I don't think it's close. That's the one position in Oregon's history where they just do not have that guy that stands out. I don't think they've ever had a first-round pick at receiver. If it did, it was a long time before we were around. But he's clearly 1A on the Mount Rushmore of Oregon receivers, and we have to appreciate what he did. And hopefully, with Junior Adams as their wide receiver coach, he's responsible for all of those guys at Washington. He recruited all of them there. He developed Troy Franklin here. Now he's got this other crop coming in. So hopefully Troy, for now, is the greatest. And maybe in a couple seasons we'll look back and say, yeah, maybe he's number 2 now. Maybe there's a guy coming in. that could take that mantle. But yeah, he is so far and away number one. It's not even a question.
Joe Gunderson of Scoop Duck joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's talk about the person who's going to be throwing to those receivers heading into next year, heading into a Big Ten slate. And I talked about with Bo Nix, and there's, Joe, there's one thing with Dylan Gabriel that I don't want to say it's a concern. It's a nitpick, all right? And it's just something that I can't get out of my head. And I think of Bo Nix, I think of Michael Penix, I think of Caleb Williams, and those are some of the biggest success stories in the transfer portal, right? And they all came with offensive coordinators they were familiar with. And now you get Dylan Gabriel coming in, and obviously he's got a lot of snaps, he's got a lot of game and a lot of experience under his belt, but coming to a team where he doesn't know exactly the offense. He's not familiar with the offensive coordinator because we're now getting into the second generation of this transfer portal thing, right? A lot of guys went with coordinators and package deals like Penix, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams. When you look at Dylan Gabriel coming in, and obviously, again, with a ton of experience, but any worry that, like, all right, going to have to learn the offense, going to have to figure, or is it just this is a transfer portal era and these quarterbacks are pros now and they can figure out an offense in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, you could say the same thing that going into this season, Bo didn't have any experience with Will Stein, and, there was that question of how would he handle it. I think things turned out pretty well, but I get what you're saying. I think it's a pretty, hand-in-glove situation when you talk about going from a guy like Nix to Gabriel, because the one thing they have in common is they're senior citizens at the position. They have been there so long. They have seen every type of defense. And, the one thing that you hear about Gabriel is, he's very cerebral in the pocket, and that's what Nix was. This season, outside of the championship game, really, that one throw, he didn't make mistakes. He was able to stand in there and really diagnose what the defense was doing. And with Gabriel, I think you're going to get a lot of the same thing. It's going to look different. He does not have the arm strength that Nix had. He's very accurate, but he's going to be a little bit more. I think you're going to see him use his legs a little bit more than what Nix did. So it's going to look different, but I don't expect a big drop off. I mean, you might be talking going from a 77, almost 75% passer to 72. But maybe you tack on a couple hundred yards on the ground where he uses his legs a little bit more to escape pressure. And the thing is now, you have to remember, it's very clear that Oregon did not trust Ty Thompson or Austin Novosad if something went wrong with Bo. Now you've got Dante coming in as well, and I know the plan is to redshirt him and get him ready for 2025. But you have to wonder, maybe they'll be a little bit more free with letting Gabriel use his legs. Not that you want him to be in a position where he can get hurt, but knowing like, hey, if he rolls an ankle and he's out for a couple weeks, we at least have a guy in Dante that has a lot of experience from this past year and has a ton of talent. So that'll be interesting to see how they operate. But I'm excited. I think when you're talking about, it is clear now they have like an 8-year plan between Gabriel, Dante Moore, and then they're going to bring in Akili Smith Jr. coming in after that. Like, they are set up finally, this program, to have a succession of quarterbacks. And then, that's why Gabriel was so perfect. I mean, there was other guys out there that I liked. I think Will Howard is a talented quarterback that I thought would have been fun to watch here. But when you're talking about the ideal fit for where this program is, what they need right now, and then going into the future, I think Gabriel's great. I'm excited to see what he does. And the fact that he's never worked with Stein, that doesn't really worry me. Stein seems like he's clearly one of those guys that is going to be here for another year at max before he's off being head coach. He's just one of those guys that yet another pick that an Oregon coach has found an offensive coordinator that is ready to go on to be the guy, because he's obviously very good at what he does.
Joel Gunderson of Scoop Duck. You can follow him on Twitter at jgundy85. Hey, Joel, thanks so much. Always a pleasure having you on the program. Appreciate the time. Love talking Duck football with you. And there's no off season, big guy, right? This is talent evaluation. Recruiting never stops. And, of course, you can't stop me talking about the good old days anyway. So look forward to talking to you again soon, bud.
Absolutely, buddy. Appreciate it. Happy New Year to you guys, and we'll talk soon.
There you go. Joel Gunderson, boys and girls. We wrap up hour number 2 next, 620 Rip City Radio. it, got through it. Now 3-time champion over the C19er. And but we haven't talked about New Year's, moving to the. Did you make a New Year's resolution? Did you decide as you were laying there with maybe the night sweats?
Nope. Can't say that crossed my mind.
You had a brain fog bigger than life, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Can't say that on like I said, we joked about before we jumped on with Joel. I don't remember what I did on New Year's. I remember waking up that morning and being like, I was originally supposed to. This was before. Long story short, I was originally supposed to be back here on Tuesday. I figured it would be. So I was expecting to go out with my friends on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Well, I wake up that morning, another positive COVID test.
Boom.
Still feel like crap. So I'm like, well, that's a bummer. So that, and all I remember is like what I had for dinner that night. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I think I did East Coast New Year's. That was it. Easily the most like low-key New Year's I've ever had in my 27 years, Justin. So yeah, it definitely takes your mind to a different place. I felt like I was transported and living on a cloud for a couple days.
Here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about, though. And if you are somebody that maybe doesn't go out, the idea of New Year's Eve and dressing up nice and, going out, I get it, right? But, like, for a dude like me, like, I go out plenty, right? I am no stranger to a sports bar or two around this great city in the Portland metro area. New Year's Eve is such amateur hour. It's I don't know how to kind of describe it. It'd be like if you go golfing and then once a year on the golf course, they're just like, hey, here's everybody that doesn't know how to play golf, and they're going to be out there too. Have a good time. Do you know what I mean? It's like, hey, we're going out on New Year's Eve. And it's like, great. Here's everybody that doesn't understand how bars work, because there are at the bar, like there's written rules, and then there's like, there's some unwritten rules, right? You don't whistle at the bartender, you don't snap at, you try to be courteous with regard to the you know what you don't do? You don't pay with a card one time for a drink and close out your tab 5 different times. Right? You don't do that. You open up a tab, keep the line moving. There's a decorum. And so, yeah, I was not out. I was staying in. And I'll tell you what, low-key New Year, underrated. It's underrated and underappreciated.
It's definitely one of those things I was a little bummed out and disappointed, Justin, is, where you have like a month worth of planning, friends from many different locations.
Yeah. That'll bum you out.
Yeah.
But,
so like I said, between that,
just plan a Super Bowl party or something.
Yeah, maybe something like that. But again, like we had a buddy that lived downtown. We had places to stay. Like it was all dialed in except for Brenden. So I heard my clan had fun without me, and I was excited for them, and definitely happy to be back. But yeah, like honestly, Justin, like going back to you, it's like, Brenden, what'd you do over New Year's? Can't really remember the day.
Can't really remember.
So I'm sorry, folks, just being honest.
But like, you probably when you go out in Vegas, too, probably understand kind of the same thing, right? There's a bunch of people when they go to Vegas and they just forget, like, all sense of decorum and decency. And it's just like, no, this is all about me. It's like that, which I understand if you're in Vegas. I get it. People are escaping and they're doing whatever. But, like, when it's in your town and it's New Year and it's like, wait, this is my ball. Like, this is my ball. Like, I'm going to be here next week.
Justin,
you're not. You are not. I won't see your face in this bar for like another 9 months, if ever. And it's like, I'm going to be here next week. And it's like, why are you all here? It's just, so I've embraced the low key. The low key New Year is like and it took getting the C19er a couple years ago when I was at home on New Year. And it's like, what a way to go. And then I celebrated with the good people of Denver. Happy New Year, Denver. And then I was in bed.
And I must say, too, Justin, I didn't think I'd miss it as much as I did. 2 straight weeks, no Brenden appearance at trivia. So,
yeah,
it was
Did you have trivia last night?
No.
Trivia last night still?
Didn't,
health and safety protocols.
Really wanted to be firm, wanted to get nobody sick, nobody ill, and took, like I said, I played it real safe. I did not know coming in that you would also be fighting off a cold. But see, I thought to myself, I'm like, Well, if I cannot come back and get anyone else in this building, we're just at 6. So that was the plan.
There's a little bit of a head cold from over the weekend. I took my Christmas lights down. I was fine. It just, Tuesday came in a little hot, blew out the vocal cords, and now I'm dealing with a little laryngitis. But
who would have thought that other guests on our program would be sick too? It happens.
Everybody got sick. Here's the other thing. We lived for how many years where just nobody got sick?
Right.
Because, we lived like psychopaths.
We're
no
bubbles.
offense, but we did. We lived like crazy people. Right? You would sit somebody gets into an elevator, we're like, oh, what do we do? Yeah. Now we're all kind of getting a little comfortable, and guess what? The germs are getting
That's like,
passed around.
Now that I don't care when that guy 2 tables down coughed, 2 years ago was,
oh, man.
Now it's like, he coughed. Oh, but, maybe I may have got what he had.
So we've got about, 90 seconds here in this segment. So in that 90 seconds, anything you've been pondering of, resolution? Or you're just like, nah, I'm good?
No, I have, there's a couple things. I came to you. There were a couple things I pondered. One thing was some self-internal improvements we're going to make with the show. That was kind of something that was on my mind.
Which is why we're not doing Thirsty Thursday right now. That has been axed. That is out.
We will have some new developments in the days to come. Number 2, Justin, you remember Ryan in The Office when after Jim transfers to Stanford because, Pam breaks his heart, and Ryan goes, I've got to commit or get out. And that's where I am with the gym. I've paid for Planet Fitness for a year.
Yeah, buddy. Let's do it.
It either needs to commit or we need to walk in and cancel.
All right, I root for commitment. I'm root for it. Let's do it. Don't want to go too fast.
It is a hole in my wallet that is not being utilized properly, Justin.
We got to get you to the gym.
At the very least, we're going to downgrade off the black card and go down to the basic.
Right. 2024, the year we get Brenden jacked. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get you on a protein plan. We're going to get...
So, commit or go.
I'm committing for you. We're doing it. All right. You know what I'm committing to? Hour number 3. That's coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio.
Here's what you need to know.
From the Goldberg Jones Sports Desk, your 620 Rip City Radio headlines. Goldberg Jones. Call 1-800-DIVORCE.
It is 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Justin Myers with you. The Blazers go down last night to the Dallas Mavericks, 126-97. That's right, 97 points. No free chicken nuggets for you. Cold shooting night for the Blazers, though, 39% from the floor. It was not cold in the gym, though, because Luka Doncic dropped in 41 points for the Mavs. College basketball tonight, Oregon will be playing Washington in men's hoops up in Seattle. Meanwhile, the Beavs are on the Palouse, fresh off their win against USC last week. Can the Beavs carry off their momentum as they take on Washington State later tonight? Hour number 3 of RCM on a Thursday starts right now at 620 Rip City Radio.
The home of the OSAA is 620 Rip City Radio. The most transparent show in Portland is Rip City Mornings with Justin Myers, here on 620 Rip City Radio.
All right, and thanks once again to Joel Gunderson, who joined us last hour. So because of that, we are going to do a little flip-flop. We got Make or Miss coming up in a bit. We will have an RCM mailbag. It was something we were talking about with Joel Gunderson. Oregon fans are dealing with this all week long. I love rivalries in sports, and there are probably a lot of players over the years for both Oregon State and Washington that I have probably unfairly hated simply because of the colors of the laundry that they wear on Saturdays. And it's very rare. It's very rare where you get a player on your rival who you go like, God, that guy's really good. And I kind of don't hate him. It's really rare. I mentioned it, 2014. I was incredibly lucky. I got a job opportunity, and I left Eugene. I went to Seattle, and, you know, the Seahawks were coming off of a Super Bowl thing, and they would be going to another Super Bowl, and Washington was not that great of a football team. They were terrible, but it was the Steve Sarkisian to Chris Peterson transition, and Chris Peterson had kind of bounced a couple of guys out. That's when he started the we're recruiting OKGs, our kind of guys. I may have made fun of that a time or two. Because at that particular time, it was 2014, and Oregon was a wagon. And Marcus Mariota was running roughshod over the Pac-12 on his way to winning a Heisman Trophy, ultimately to fall short to Ohio State. That's Zeke Elliott. He's really good. And I may have, you know, been a bit snarky. Probably didn't do any favors to myself in ingratiating me in my new city by talking about how much I loved their arch nemesis. But I heard from Washington fans all the time. Want to hate Mariota. Want to hate him. Can't hate the guy. He's too good. He doesn't play dirty. He's not flashy. He's not like Johnny Football, right? It's easy. Like if you were a Texas fan or if you were an Alabama fan, I could see why you hated Johnny Football. You know what I mean? I could see it. If you were a Florida fan or a Miami fan, I could see why you would hate Jameis Winston. Or even a Clemson fan. I could see it. Like, oh, God, I hate that guy. But there are certain times where you're just like, I can't hate him. And, Brenden, I'm dealing with this with Michael Penix right now. It's just, God, I want to dislike him. I want to scream from the rooftops. This guy is so overrated. He's not. He's not overrated. Matter of fact, he's probably underrated. I love Bo Nix. I think Caleb Williams is a tremendous athlete. Penix might be the best pro out of all of them. Like, he might be. And Tyson Alger brought this up yesterday. If Michael Penix was right-handed, if he was right-handed, had everything else was the same, but if Michael Penix was right-handed, he might be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. It sounds nuts. But, like, we still have, I think, a thing with left-handed QBs a little bit.
Here's why he wouldn't be. And I shout out Joe Gunderson because people do not talk about this enough. And this is why.
I know what you're going to say.
If I am an NFL GM, I'm cautioning this. Michael Penix is a walking injury history. And
I didn't think about that.
If you are an NFL GM and you go, ooh, a couple torn ACLs and a torn shoulder. Not throwing, but still, compared to someone like Caleb Williams, who's really never been hurt. Someone like Drake May, who's really never been hurt. Bo Nix, never really been hurt. And I think
doesn't like playing 2 seasons though without an injury, and he's been pretty durable those 2 seasons. I hear what you're saying. You're right.
But when you consider that like his entire career at Indiana was derailed because of injury,
yeah,
like we talked about luck and the luck with the Huskies. Justin, he made a good point that maybe they weren't lucky. Their quarterback's health may have been lucky these last 2 years.
Well, I don't know if it's that offensive line.
Yeah, it's a question, right?
But
Good
for what Washington does, right? That offensive line is like perfect. Because I think about it with like Oregon in the Chip Kelly era. Oregon set almost every rushing record in the conference for years. Yet you would think, so obviously all of their offensive linemen were going to the NFL. It's like, no, there were like 2 guys. Like 2 guys went. Max Unger went to the NFL, and I think that might have been it, to be perfectly honest.
As it turns out, he was a very important Seahawk.
Very important Seahawk. But, like, other than Max Unger, is like, no, crying out loud, Kyle Long. Kyle Long played, and he played for the Bears, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So Kyle Long. So,
yeah, okay.
But a handful, but not a lot. And it was because that's, for what Oregon does, they needed the offensive linemen to be able to get to the second level. And same thing for Washington this year. For what Washington does, for what the Huskies are designed to do, they don't need, big bulldozers up front. They need guys that can move laterally, move the pocket, and protect the backside of their quarterback that has 2 reconstructed knees. But you're right with the injury history. That's probably more problematic at the end. Because look, NFL, right? It's not show friends, it's show business, and
liability and all those things.
You take a guy in the first round, and that's a first round contract. It's very different, as we're learning, than say a 7th round. But I think Penix is going to. He made himself so much money on Monday,
right?
With that game against Texas, like he made himself so much money, and is like, yeah. We've been seeing it all year long. Don't know if he's going to surpass Caleb Williams, and it's going to be interesting, the medical evaluation. But I think he might be the 3rd quarterback taken.
Yeah, I would have him right now, number 3. To be perfectly honest, and who knows? He comes out. He's
like, where does he go?
Like, he's the quarterback I've seen the least of. But like, right now, I'm not even sold on Drake May. I'd take a Pac-12 quarterback. I look at Drake May and I say, could he be Sam Howell? Sure. Could he be Mitch Trubisky? You bet. Sorry. 2 North Carolina quarterbacks just have to throw that shot in.
Hey, Mason Rudolph has come in and saved the season, all right?
Clearly
2 wins in
the
a row.
Hawks.
Mason Rudolph has saved the season.
So
now going up against the Ravens. Ravens aren't going to be playing anybody.
Yeah.
Look out.
So
don't let him in. Don't let Mason Rudolph into the playoffs.
So I'm totally biased. I mean, I think that, like, I would take probably Penix or Bo Nix before the Heisman Trophy winner. And I know that's a hot take. So, I'm real biased for the Pac-12 quarterbacks that I saw and loved this year.
I talked about it a little bit yesterday. The Brock Purdy thing, well, that's a, 1 in a million shot, right? The Brock Purdy thing. But there is something that he's got, which is a lot of starts. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of starts under his belt. As opposed to when you look at Trey Lance, I keep throwing ricochet shots at Trey Lance, or Zach Wilson, right? Guys that got drafted early, but they didn't have a lot of starts. They didn't have a lot of football experience. Penix, Bo Nix, like those guys got like 40, 50 starts under their belt. That matters, I think.
I think when you look at the quarterbacks in this draft, I mean, Drake May, still a multi-year starter. We were talking about him last year when he played Bo. Obviously, Jaden Daniels been around for a minute, so it's kind of interesting we're not seeing any of those, like, one-hit wonder quarterbacks near the top. But just because I don't think we'll get a chance to mention it, Justin, something that totally slipped my mind that applies to this conversation very well.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Cam Ward declaring for the NFL draft, and where does he plug into this whole thing? Or is that a ploy to get more NIL because he didn't hire an agent and will have the ability to backtrack until January 15th.
If he does that, I would like, smart move.
But
Smart move.
I totally
So here's what
that.
I wonder about Cam Ward. I wonder.
Is he good enough?
Well, that's a very good point. I wonder if he goes into the transfer portal and thought, Oregon, definitely. That's the spot. Nike bag, here it comes. Uncle Phil, come get your boy. And all of a sudden they're like, now we got Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. Sorry, dude. Sorry about it, Cam. We got two guys.
And then he was connected to Florida State, too.
And he was also connected to Ohio State, I saw. But then Ohio State came in and got, I forget who they got. They got somebody. And all of a sudden, I just wonder if, like, Cam Ward was like,
Well, they got Will Howard, that
boom, there you go.
Joe Gunderson just mentioned from Kansas State.
This is what the transfer portal is going to be like. Do you remember the draft when Aaron Rodgers was sitting in the green room forever, right? Because it was down to like him or Utah quarterback. Why can't I remember? Alex Smith.
Yeah.
So it was like him or Alex Smith right at the top. And then afterwards, there's like about 18 teams that don't need quarterbacks. So it's going to be a while. I wonder if like the transfer portal with quarterbacks is going to be like that, where it's like, hey, I have declared I'm going to transfer. And Cam Ward maybe thought like, Oregon's going to need a guy. I'm already on the West Coast. I'm familiar with conference doesn't matter because it's going away. I still forget that that's happening. But I'm familiar with Washington. I'm familiar, And Oregon's like, yeah, sorry, we got Dylan Gabriel. And much like in the draft, when maybe Aaron Rodgers could have went number 1 overall if the 49ers picked him, but they didn't. And then after that, it was like, don't need a quarterback, don't need a quarterback, don't need a quarterback. And I wonder if that's what happened to Cam Ward, is like he had 2 or 3 options. Those teams got those options. And now you're like, all right, well, nobody else needs a quarterback or have already gotten their quarterback or, you know what I mean?
So it was, you think, and again, I'm no I try to be an expert in this situation, but the way that he made it sound and the way that I heard, his dad is kind of leading his recruitment so he doesn't have to hire an agent and all that, like, not like we've seen it happen a whole lot anyway, but Justin, you read the way his words, there is 0 chance he would return to Washington State.
No.
And not to say that
no offense, but nor should he.
Not to say that
if you have an opportunity to play at a Power 4 and get an NIL deal.
Yeah, so say he sticks with the draft and falls.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just being honest. Like,
what's the deadline there? Do we know?
So
because if he didn't hire an agent,
January 14th.
So January 14th, he's got to go like you with the gym.
Yep.
He's either
commit or get out.
He's either committing or getting. Maybe we should put that up. January 14th, Brenden commits to 3 days a week at the gym, or he will. And good luck canceling membership. They don't let you do that very easily.
They'll be so upset. They'll be like,
all right, we're going to put that. You got 10 days. January 14th, you shall commit. But, like, I think Cam Ward thought there were more options out there than maybe there actually were.
Do you see him as a pro quarterback? That's the thing that really I struggle
I'm the wrong guy to ask.
Yeah.
Because they're, like, Matt Ryan, when he was at Boston College, I was like, this guy's not going to be a pro. It's like, yeah, almost won a Super Bowl and an MVP. Like, I didn't see it.
But there are some you're
I'm the worst.
There are some that you're happy. Like, I remember in when I was in college being like, yeah, Carson Wentz is going to suck. Feel real good about that a couple years later.
Yes.
Right? So sometimes you hit, don't. I didn't think, I thought Zach Wilson would be decent. So, things happen.
Yeah, I'm the worst guy. Who knows, right? Who knows the system and everything else, right? It, like look at what Jake Browning's doing. You know what I mean? Like, Jake Browning's Joe Flacco came off the couch, right? It's all about the situation, the team you get put into. But I also believe that dynamic quarterbacks can change organizations, right? The Bengals were terrible. They drafted Joe Burrow. Guess what? He changed their organization.
Firing Marvin Lewis probably helped too.
Yeah, it always helps. Like Trevor Lawrence, like the Jaguars, terrible.
Urban,
terrible. You get Trevor Lawrence, get rid of Urban, guess what?
Well,
playoff team.
Better.
Might win the division second year in a row. So I do believe, like, you draft a dynamic player and he can change your franchise's thing. But getting back to, let's get back to Penix real quick. you look at this draft board, right? The Bears got the number 1 pick. Bears got the number 1 pick. It's locked up. I don't know if they go quarterback. I don't know. Do you go Marvin Harrison Jr. and you get Justin Fields a weapon? Do you trade back to maybe a team that wants a quarterback so you could maybe still think that Harrison Jr. is going to be there? So Bears don't need a quarterback. The Patriots just announced that Bill Belichick's, or no, we don't know if Bill Belichick's coming back. Patriots might need a quarterback. So Caleb Williams might be head of the Patriots. After that, Cardinals, they got too much money in.
The Commanders, sure forget the Commanders in there.
The Commanders are in there. They might need a quarterback. Also, by the way, where's Caleb Williams from?
The DC?
From DC.
Yeah.
So the Commanders might make the move up to get Caleb Williams, bring the prodigal son home, right? But,
yeah, this mock.
are the Falcons going to give up on Desmond Ridder?
Right. This
Giants can't give up on Danny Dimes just quite yet. Clearly, no with the Chargers. Are the Titans going to give up on Will Levis all that soon? Aaron Rodgers is coming back for the Jets. Raiders need a quarterback. But you know what I mean?
I could see Penix going top 10. I mean,
Penix going to the Raiders?
The one that I'm looking at has him mocked to the Falcons. That would be
You
interesting.
give it up on Ridder, you think?
I could see him giving up on him. It's that. You said it yourself, Justin. Show friends, show business. You got to have results, right? The Falcons had a chance to win.
Also, Russell Wilson's going to be out there somewhere, too. You got to sign him real cheap. Somebody's going to sign him real cheap.
Oh, yeah.
They will.
That guy.
Somebody's going to sign him real cheap. All right, we are going to get to the break. We got Make or Miss coming up. But before we do, I do want to tell you about the good folks at DeBella, right? Been talking to you about them for a while, the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers, because Portland weather, it can be brutal. And this winter might be even colder than last year, but you want to save up to 30% on your energy bills. DeBella can help. Why? Because they take care of your roofing, your windows, your siding. You upgrade all that stuff, keeps out all those drafts, keeps your energy bills nice and low. Plus, if your roof is maybe a little bit old, if you were like me last week, taking off your Christmas lights going like, ugh, I don't know about this roof. Leaking, aging, they can get you a free quote right now. 15,000 five-star reviews on Google for their excellent work. That's all from customers. 15,000 five-star reviews. Plus, DeBella's got an amazing financing opportunity. 0 down, no payments until 2025 on approved credit. 0 down, no payments until 2025. Visit DeBella, DABELLA.US for your free no obligation appointment, and they can make upgrading your home super easy. DeBella, the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. as Oregon had a player present at the Heisman Trophy presentation. I mean, those are all-time things. All happened in 1 year. But Washington Huskies are playing on Monday night, and it doesn't matter. Because if they get a win, that flag flies forever. That banner lies. You want to know what's at stake, Brenden, for Oregon fans before we get into make or miss? Here's what's at stake. Because Oregon fans, like Husky fans and USC fans, and I would imagine some Beaver fans as well, but Washington and USC especially love, hey, that's not an Oregon. Oh, that's a 0 for national championships, right? They love saying that. And Oregon fans will always come back and be like, yeah, 91 was a fluke. You split the national title. You would have lost to Miami that year. It's a half. We love throwing that out. And the fact that I don't know why they did it, but Washington at their stadium put up not a banner, but they affix 2016 college football playoff participant. Like they put up a participation trophy. Well, if they win on Monday, all those jokes are gone. They're all gone. It's like, yep, true national championship, won it in the playoff era, beat you twice doing it. There's no what, woulda, coulda, it's over. Yeah, all the jokes are done. So a lot at stake. A lot at stake for Oregon fans. We're dealing with a lot of emotion right now. But fun conversation with Joel Gunderson. And because of that, we do a little switcheroo, which brings us right now to make or miss. Here we go.
It bounces off the crossbar, and it's good. Oh my goodness! Oh, and a big miss.
It's Make or Miss here on RCM.
All right, firing up make or miss today. Joe Flacco would have never guessed he'd be shut down for winning too much.
How about that? Things we did not think we would hear in 2024. Cleveland Browns saying, let's rest Joe Flacco so he doesn't get hurt for the playoffs. Boy, talk about your all-time. Did not have that on my NFL bingo card. Man, I talked about it yesterday. Lamar Jackson's the best story in the NFL right now in terms of quarterbacks, in my opinion. From all the stuff we talked about. Remember the conversations we had in the summer, Brenden, about Lamar Jackson and his mom's his agent and can't invest that much money. It's like, yeah, he's going to be the MVP. He's got the Ravens as the number one seed in the AFC. They may be the best team in the NFL. And he's probably going to win his second MVP. After that, the fact that Brock Purdy has done it again, I think, in terms of quarterback conversations, right? The fact that Brock Purdy has done it again. Last year wasn't really a fluke. Turns out, for whatever reason, Purdy is the guy that fits perfectly in the driver's seat for the 49ers. He's got them at the top of the NFC, and they're going to be resting guys. Now, the third best story with regard to quarterbacks is old Joe Flacco coming off the couch, staying in shape, going like, somebody's going to give me a call. And then having, 5 games, 4-1, and over 4 of those games, over 300 yards in every single one of them. And it's the best the Browns offense has looked, maybe since Bernie Kosar. Right? That's what we're talking, like, seriously. Brenden, you play fantasy football?
I do.
When was the last time the Browns had a quarterback that you could consistently go, he's going to have 300 yards and about 2 touchdowns?
Like never.
Bernie Kosar. Before fantasy football was even a thing. Before the internet.
Pretty much.
And it's Joe Flacco coming off the couch. Yeah. Hey, this summer, here's what. Trends in the NFL season. Brenden, I think the Browns are going to be in week 18 resting Joe Flacco so he doesn't get hurt for the playoffs. And you'd be like, have you lost your mind?
Again,
Are you losing it?
Things people forget about. I know it was a long time ago, but Joe Flacco has a ring. He has a Super Bowl MVP.
Bet on himself, too.
I know that was 11 years ago, but Justin, we're gonna do.
Beyonce helped him win it though. Beyonce should have won the MVP because remember, 49ers had the momentum.
That was the blackout game,
and
too,
then
right?
Beyonce, my concert is too important, and I'm gonna turn the lights out of this place.
Let's play a little trivia, Justin, because I know that I'm just curious. Joe Flacco played at 2 colleges. Do you know either or?
One of them's Delaware, correct?
Yeah, the Delaware.
He's a Delaware Blue Hen.
Fighting Blue Hen.
Yeah.
That's a great mascot, man.
Fun fact about Delaware.
I like that.
Their helmets were copied by Michigan. The Michigan winged helmet that was going to be playing in the national title was a ripoff of Delaware.
Wait, Delaware was first? Oh.
Delaware was first with the winged helmet.
It was a colony.
You want to know why? Delaware was definitely before Michigan in the creation of the United States, yes, but also the winged helmet. You know why they have the winged helmet?
No,
you know
guess
why
that
it
I
is? Do. Delaware was one of the first teams to have an actual passing attack. Back then, they just ran the ball.
I do remember that, but I didn't know it was Delaware that kicked that off.
They ran the ball, and then Delaware's like, we can pass the ball. What's an easy way to distinguish our players from their players? Throw those wings on the helmets. And then Michigan was also starting to pass the ball and was like, Delaware's got it figured out. Slap some wings on there. So that's a little Delaware Blue Hens fun fact.
That's
on
cool.
A Thursday.
That's like, again, Joe Flacco, he's one of those.
So I don't know what the other place he went to college was.
Pitt.
So he started at Pitt?
Started at Pitt, finished with the Fighting Blue Hens. But yeah, I could not have told you that if that was a trivia question with my life on the line.
How about that coach at Pitt? Whether it was...
Oh, good question.
Who was the coach at Pitt? Was it...
Oh, this is a great one.
Was it the guy who used to... Was it Wayne... Not Wayne Fonts. Was it the guy who used to coach the Dolphins?
Think bad end at Stanford.
Buddy Stevens?
Walt Harris.
Do
Bad end.
you imagine like, what do you... Coaches. Let's have a team meeting. What do we think of Flacco? I don't see it, gang. I don't see it. All right. Yeah, Flacco, not happening. I'm going to go to Delaware. Good luck in Delaware. And then see him win in the Super Bowl. And now it's at what? How old is he? Like 38? Coming off the couch. Taking the Browns to what maybe the second best team in the AFC. I know the Dolphins are good, but
Walt Harris is pushing 80. I imagine that's probably an interesting little nugget for him in his retirement, being like, man, I remember when Joe was...
Yeah, I just didn't see it, man.
Yeah, he's like, I just didn't see it. No
we talked about with the draft last segment about how, I'm the worst guy to talk, but, coaches don't see it either. You know what I mean? There are plenty of coaches out there that are just like, yeah, I don't see it with Flacco. That kid, it's not going to work. Oh, going to play how many years in the NFL? Be a Super Bowl MVP? And maybe have the best offensive run that the Browns have ever had? Yeah. Oops, missed that one, Walt.
Yeah, that was crazy, man. But no, anyway, all that to say, I think Joe Flacco is one of the coolest stories just in recent memory. But
it's really fun being a Steelers fan and seeing Joe Flacco and Lamar Jackson just having career months. It's real fun. It's just awesome. Super fun. But good thing I don't think Lamar's playing this weekend. So I'm pretty pumped about that. Don't let us in. Don't let them in. Don't let the Steelers in. George Pickens finally figured some things. By the way, how about Mason Rudolph figuring, I may never play quarterback again. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw it to the best guy on our team every time.
Hey, man.
It's thank you for somebody that's figured it out.
The best backup.
We got a weapon. It's Tua Tagovailoa figured it out. It's I'm just going to throw Tyreek Hill every time.
And
it's resurgent year.
This brings me back to mid-season, actually, when we had this conversation, and I credit because Mitch Trubisky failed at that entirely. And I
massively.
I absolutely failed. But I said, no different than when Kirk Cousins went out and Josh Dobbs went and found T.J. Hawkinson every play. You're a backup quarterback. You go look for your star. You go and you say, hey, man, I'm going to take you out to dinner. I'm going to do, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to make you a busy, busy man. And it's what did Joe Flacco do? Oh, he started throwing to David Njoku's tight end a lot. Started throwing to Amari Cooper a lot. and it's like, oh, wow, Deshaun Watson didn't really target those guys. They weren't winning. So,
Same with like, hey, why is Brock Purdy so good? Deebo Samuels gets the ball a lot.
really good target.
So does George Kittle. He gets the ball a lot.
Question for you, Justin, is this...
But also, credit to Dak Prescott. It's like, CD Lamb's got the ball in his hands a little bit more this year.
Gosh.
You know what I mean?
So good. That dude is so talented. Now that he's been a backup for a couple years, Justin, and maybe failed, is Mr. Trubisky out of the league? He done? He cooked Dunzo?
I don't think so.
Or do you think he gets another backup gig, given that he was a decent backup for the Bills?
Since I think it started with the COVID Broncos thing. Remember when the Broncos had to play a game without a quarterback? Because COVID?
Oh, my gosh. I'm looking up that dude's name.
Blake Bortles was like, he got the Broncos had to play an NFL game.
The receiver, dude.
The Broncos had to play an NFL game because of COVID. They didn't have a quarterback. And I think then with the 49ers last year, they extended the roster. You get that emergency quarterback. And, in case of emergency break glass, here comes Mitch Trubisky. He can at least hand the ball off. That keeps a guy like Mitch Trubisky in the league forever. For as long as he wants, I would imagine.
Kendall Hilton. He was... he's a wide receiver and now a undrafted, but he took... I mean, imagine that, Justin. Your NFL career doesn't pan out, but you go, hey, kids, your dad was a quarterback.
Played quarterback in the NFL for one glorious day.
It's kind of a cool flex still, no? But
I think because of that, didn't they expanded the quarterbacks on the roster? Like, that's how the Steelers have Mason Rudolph on their team. Like, they were never going to play him. It's like, in case of emergency, and it's like, emergency is Trubisky stinks. Get Rudolph in there. And now they're riding him. They're riding the hot hand. I think Kenny Pickett he's at 70%, could play. They're like, no, we're going to ride the hot hand. Because Mason Rudolph has figured it out. Like, just throws it to the fast guy.
So what's the difference, Justin? Kenny Pickett getting hurt and Matt Canada being fired, or Mason Rudolph?
Oh, it's the former as opposed to the latter. But, you don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So you try to figure it out. You got to get into the postseason.
It's true. This one might be a hot take, Justin. Seahawks are better off looking towards the draft than securing a playoff spot. Who is right?
Well, so here's the problem. They don't have a second-round pick, right? So
that is correct.
And we talked about it with Brady Henderson. They've got 4 days after the Super Bowl wraps up to where they have to make, again, like you and the gym, they got to commit to Geno Smith or they got to move on. And right now, I don't get the feeling they want to commit to Geno Smith.
Me neither.
It was a nice 2 years. Needed it. And you did not fall to the depths that maybe a lot of Seahawks fans thought they were going to fall to when you lose Russell Wilson. And a big reason that's because Geno Smith, the way he played last year, he did not look like a guy that can win you a Super Bowl. And again, you got guys like Michael Penix and Bo Nix out there. And John Schneider is one of the smartest GMs I've ever been around. Super smart. He looks at what the 49ers are doing, and it's like, if we get a third-round guy, and by the way, the Seahawks did this before, because Russell Wilson was a third-rounder. You want to know why the Seahawks were able to pay Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor and Marshawn Lynch and who else is in the mix? Who am I forgetting?
Earl Thomas.
Earl Thomas. Like, you want to know why they were able to pay all
Brandon
those guys?
Browner.
Because they got a third-round quarterback that played as a rookie for 4 years.
Michael Bennett, Malcolm Smith when they had him. That defense was
legit.
Stacked and high paid.
But, before they paid Russell, they paid Earl Thomas, they paid Marshawn Lynch, and they paid Richard Sherman. And they were able to keep those guys because you got a third-rounder that played as a rookie.
So that was before...
You can find a rookie quarterback with 50 starts like Bo Nix.
So that was before they tied up 25% of their cap to Lockett and Wilson?
Yeah.
Oh, that might not have been the best move in hindsight.
You have to, though.
But
you have to anymore.
It's tough because you look back...
Because look at the Patriots, right? You don't have a quarterback. That's Bill Belichick, and they stink. Why? They don't have a quarterback.
But conversely, right? Patriots never paid a receiver. We've talked about this forever. And did obviously, you talked about it. DK Metcalf was created because Russell Wilson said, "Get me help."
Yeah.
Right? Russell Wilson.
Same with Tyler Lockett. It was even back then.
Right. And Russell Wilson, you told me, him and Tyler Lockett, day ones.
Yes.
You don't think Russell Wilson was a part of Tyler Lockett getting a massive bag? He absolutely was. So, and that was the regime change and all that. But as I look at the standings, Justin, I don't see the Hawks losing to the Cardinals.
The Cardinals just beat the Eagles.
This is true. But
Kyler Murray's on fire right now.
That being said, if the Seahawks could still lose and make it, like I said this, Justin, and after kind of double checking my math, like the Hawks could still get into this thing. They stand 8th right now, behind Green Bay for that final playoff.
Green
spot.
Bay's got the Bears. And the Green Bay wins, they're in.
What if
Green Bay has to lose to the Bears for the Seahawks to get in, and the Seahawks have to win.
And if we determined a winner, sorry folks, I'm catching up on all my tie-breaking scenarios too. Do we know who wins the out-and-out tiebreaker Buccaneers Saints to close that division? Is that team sitting 8th too? So I'm just curious. I would assume probably.
I think the Buccaneers.
Okay, so
don't they play each other?
No, they have already played. The Bucs have the Panthers.
Panthers, they're gonna win that one.
And the Saints have the Falcons.
I don't know how
that works either. We'll have to dive. And then the Vikings are probably cooked.
I think the Vikings got cooked with their loss.
They play the Lions.
The
It's not official, but they will be. Man, imagine if Jordan Love and the Packers make the playoffs.
They have to beat the Bears. That's all they got to do. They just got to beat the Bears.
That would be something.
And the Bears are better, but like, real quick, getting back to the Seahawks though.
Yeah. Do you think they would take a quarterback with a first-round pick, considering that? Let's just say, for sake of argument,
I know the answer to this. I don't know if you do. Probably not. You know, the last first-round quarterback the Seahawks took was
Warren Moon.
No, because he was drafted by the Vikings and ultimately played.
Okay, I didn't know.
There's a guy named Rick Meyer.
Okay. Not Myers.
Not Myers, spelled differently. And Rick Meyer from Notre Dame back in the early 90s.
Okay.
They don't draft quarterbacks.
I wouldn't have guessed. Again, you just figure right now, like hypothetically.
All right, you want a real crazy talk? You want to get nuts as we wrap up Make or Miss? You call Russell Wilson? Call him?
I call Bo Nix first.
You're the Seahawks. You call Russell Wilson? They're like, hey, you just got bought out by the Broncos. Hey, want to come back home? You want to come back home, Russ?
Give him a chance to fix his legacy, but I don't think Seahawk fans want any part of that. I don't think they want it. You know Seahawk fans better than I. You're married to one.
Griffey came back.
You're married to one. Would your
Griffey came back?
How would your
Richard
wife
Sherman
feel
came
about
back?
that?
All's forgiven. Come on back.
If he wins. But what if he... Yes, I think Seahawk fans be like, we've seen your show in Denver.
I know.
But crazy. I like it.
All right, so there you go. There's Make or Miss. We got the RCM mailbag coming up. One more time, though, I do want to tell you about DeBella because I don't know if you heard me the first time, but they are the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. And here's the deal. If you've been putting off maybe some home renovation, you're like, look, you just don't have it in the budget. Hey, give DeBella a call right now because their financing opportunity was 0 down and no payments until 2025. We're only 4 days into 2024. You won't have to make a payment until 2025 with 0 down and no payments until next year on approved credit for siding, windows, bath renovations. Plus, with the winter weather being what it is, if you are unsure about your roof, if it's leaking in spots or maybe just aging, and again, something that you don't think about your roof until you absolutely have to think about it. Well, you can get a free quote right now from DeBella's, one of the best in Oregon because they've got over 15,000 5-star reviews. Plus, if you take care of your roof, you take care of your windows and your siding, you can save up to 30% on your energy bills. Visit DeBella, DABELLA.us for your free, no obligation appointment, and they can make updating your home so easy. DeBella, the official home improvement partner of the Portland Timbers. all that. Let's get to the mailbag.
Yeah, like Rubik's Cubes have always been a source of frustration for me because I've never really been able to figure one out. And I think that shows maybe the geometry and the math of it all. But Justin, like, say I was Tom Hanks in Castaway and one of those nice FedEx boxes had a Rubik's Cube.
Oh, yeah.
You give me an hour and I would have chucked it into the ocean and been like, yep, enough of this. I give up.
Then it washes back up.
Yeah,
and
and it would
teases
just keep
you like he did, like poor Wilson, right? He kicked
would
Wilson,
just
the one
keep-
that just came back. And
But no, I mean, if there was, yeah, dude, they talk about product placement. People at Rubik's Cube should have been like, hey, Tom Hanks, can we give you one on the island, man? Come out of the FedEx box.
But yeah, I think I could figure it out. I really do. I think I could figure it out.
How much time do you think it would take you?
Hours. It would take me hours.
Pushing days or
I think I could get it between now and I fall asleep of exhaustion.
Okay.
I think
that'd
so.
still be impressive to me. So yeah.
I might try it out as I'm gonna be hung up. I gotta
Justin's like, all right, I'm gonna play with the Rubik's Cube as I get my teeth drilled on.
Yep, gotta go get a root canal. That's gonna happen right now. All right, thanks to Joel Gunderson. Thanks to Super.